So if you're not here on the day of the lecture, this is my way of ensuring you are able to take the active listening notes. So as I do go over in class, half of your notes are pretty much already filled in, and you should go through the slideshow and fill in the rest of them before I actually give the lecture. That way, while I am giving the lecture, you should be taking these active listening notes as it talks about right here. So what does that mean? That means putting things in these side columns that I mentioned in class or things that are super important, but aren't necessarily on the board. And one thing to keep in mind is that you do not have to fill out every single section. Not every section is going to have groundbreaking new information that I didn't put on the board, but this does show to me that you are listening and taking notes while I am talking and not just goofing off and doing other things. And this is going to be one of the parts that is graded when I am grading your notes. Okay, so I am expecting to have the active listening notes in the side on every notes. I am also expecting a summary at the end of your notes. So both of those are going to be part of the 10 points for these. All right, so then I give you time to do your notes. And now I'm getting into it. So if you were not here, this is what our lecture was. So we are going to start off with some similarities between Judeo-Christian beliefs and Greco-Roman beliefs. So Judeo-Christian, that's like Jewish religion and Christian religion. So beliefs that they hold dear, and Greece and Rome. So we're looking at similarities. So in the law, both of these kind of societies are going to value order and regulation in their societies. We're going to be seeing that in almost all organized societies, right? But this is some similarity between those two. They are also both going to emphasize the importance of moral conduct. So how they define morals and morality may be a little different, but they both are going to write this morality into their laws. All right. Reason and faith. So both groups are going to acknowledge the limit of human understanding, with the Judeo-Christian really leaning towards leaving a lot of this up to the God that they believe in. And Greco-Roman is more just human understanding that they are not capable of everything. Both are also going to offer avenues for exploring spiritual and philosophical truths. So those were the similarities. Now we are looking at the differences. So the differences in law, Judeo-Christians, Christianity believed divine laws with moral guidance. So they believed all of it was coming from God directly, and the spiritual leaders were kind of the ones interpreting this. Whereas Greco-Roman, again, they worship different gods. They believed in human-made laws for civic order. So they weren't as reliant on their spiritual leaders. They're more reliant on government to be creating these laws. Reason and faith, Judeo-Christian. Faith complements reason for spiritual insight, but in Greco-Roman, they are going to be more of a strong reliance on rational inquiry. So more the own human mind solving problems rather than going to a spiritual leader for any questions you would have. So it's a lot more about self-reflection. So why is this important? Well, for a long time, we are going to see the churches controlling a lot of governments in Europe. Where this is going to start to split is with the Roman Catholic Church. So the original Christianity, it was just one Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church is going to develop from Roman Christianity based in Rome, and the Catholic and Orthodox churches are going to split in 1054. So now there are two separate churches. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Catholic churches. Orthodox is similar, but obviously there are differences in it. They're both Christianity, so they're both going to believe in those same central ideas of the teachings of Jesus. But the two churches are going to split in 1054. And with that split, the Catholic Church is going to actually become the biggest force in Europe. Catholic Church is going to control most of Western Europe, not all of it, but many societies are going to be heavily reliant on the Catholic Church. Orthodox is going to be more Eastern Europe. So how did they control it? They controlled religion, social, and political aspects of life, and they did expect unquestioned obedience. So that's a lot different from that Greco-Roman thought, right? Where it is about self-reflection. They said, don't question anything. The church will tell you everything you need to know in life. However, that goes on for a couple hundred years, but then the Renaissance is going to start in the 1300s and go through the 1600s. So you may have heard that term Renaissance, not just from the Beyonce album, but it is going to be an explosion of art and culture in Europe, and it does begin in Italy. So what is the Renaissance? It is essentially a revival of Greek and Roman society. They're going to look back at the art, at the literature of that time, and sort of revive it. So they're going to make it new again. They're going to be kind of copying a lot of those ideas. Most of the Greek and Roman statues that you see in famous museums are actually going to be from the Renaissance era, not actually from the Greek and Roman times of BC. Most of it's going to be from the Renaissance, where they are recreating them. And why does it start now? The invention of the printing press is going to be the biggest influence on this, because it will allow all of these ideas to spread quickly. In the past, if you had a book, you would have the book, and if you wanted any more copies, someone would have to actually physically write down and copy this entire book. Now, with the printing press, you can take a book and you can print out hundreds of copies of it, which makes it a lot cheaper, right? Rather than paying someone to physically copy a book, you can get hundreds or thousands of copies relatively fast. And this is able to spread these ideas throughout all of Europe, because now even poorer people could access these books. And lastly, the Renaissance is going to be about the idea of enjoying life rather than living your life in preparation for the afterlife. So you're not just dedicating your whole life to the church anymore. You're living it to enjoy life, not just to get into heaven. So Renaissance continued. Renaissance education is also going to be a lot different than prior education. It is going to prepare people for public service rather than life in the church. Most education before this time is going to be very reliant on preparing you for different roles in the church. It was not the only education, but most education was just about trying to set you up for the church, right? Now they are going to start studying different things, studying things like history, as you are in this class, literature, right? Not just the Bible, but all literature. A lot of the arts are going to start being taught again. Renaissance thinkers are going to begin to question their oppressive governments. As we read last class, you read the Republic and you read parts of Politics. So those ideas are going to surface up again. Plato and Aristotle's ideas that you should not stand for tyranny are going to become new again. People are going to spread those. So with that, they are going to start considering democracy again. Also around this time, explorers are going to start to travel around the world. They're not just listening to the church saying, we know all of the areas we need. They're going to start sending explorers out all over the world. And then we are going to go to another big change. We are going to come to the Protestant Reformation. So the Catholic Church, as I said, had a lot of power even throughout the Renaissance, but people are going to be more critical of the church during this period. They're able to spread these different ideas, see people in different countries are thinking like them, questioning the Catholic Church. So the Protestant Reformation is really going to be started by this guy, Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther is going to start the Protestant church. So it's kind of this third faction of Christianity. You have Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant. And the name Protestant comes from protesting the Catholics. So he is going to be very critical of church greed, people paying for their way to get into heaven, essentially. He has 95 criticisms of the Catholic Church, and he actually takes them all and nails them onto the front door of a church. Another thing he really wanted to do was to translate the Bible. Now, if you go to a church now, you'll see tons of Bibles in English. But before this time, they only allowed for the Bible to be in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Most people did not speak any of those languages, so you had to go to church to read the Bible because the priest would interpret it for you. Martin Luther is saying individual people, they are smart enough to understand these ideas. They should be able to read a Bible at home. Within the Protestant church, there's going to be a lot of different factions. It's coming from different interpretations of the Bible. So Lutheran, Presbyterian, Baptist, Calvinist, there's a lot more churches around town. They're all part of the Protestant church. So they're their own churches, but they break off from Protestantism. Protestants are also going to put heavy emphasis on the power of the individual. Again, this kind of goes back to that idea that the people are able to interpret the Bible for themselves. They're able to read the Bible themselves. They don't need a priest to tell them what to think or how to interpret it. And lastly, Protestants said the clergy had no special powers. So there is no pope in the Catholic Church. There's no one person who's so much closer to God, according to the Protestant Reformation. And why is this important? The legacy. We're going to see societies all over Europe start to have this big emphasis on thinking for yourself, starting to question the things around you. People are going to question things like monarchs and popes, and why do they have all this power over us? What gives them this power? And this is why we are going to start to see a shift towards democracy and away from powerful individuals who rule over their whole country and are just born into it, right? People are going to question why they have that power. So that is the notes. Hopefully you were able to take those active listening notes. At the bottom of your note sheet, I do want at least 2 main ideas of the lecture. Again, that is one of the graded parts of notes. And then the end of the day, you will have an exit ticket. I just have not written it yet. All right, good luck.